We are officially in the All-Star break around the NBA. We're going to talk about our biggest surprises and disappointments so far in the season and try to predict the top three teams in the East and West and break down what happened in the NBA Rising Stars game. We're going to talk about all that and more on today's Locked On NBA Game Night.
When that final buzzer rings, you know it's time for Locked On NBA Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. It's the true NBA fans' one stop for all the action. Every game, every night. It's Locked On NBA Game Night. Tipping off now.
Thank you for tuning in to Locked On NBA Game Night. I am one of your hosts, Hayes, one of those Locked On Bulls. I'm joined by Gavin Shaw. How you doing, Gavin?
Doing good, man. Hot finish for my Knicks heading to the All-Star break. And you know that last game means everything, man, because you can create your own delusions for a week. And after they beat the Sixers by 50, I'm going to do just that.
At least you get to create positive delusions. My Bulls, man, it's bad right now. For
a lot of guards. Too many.
Way too many guards, man. Today's episode is brought to you guys by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Well, yeah, but we're going to talk about some surprises and disappointments going around the NBA at this point in the season. We're officially in the All-Star break. We come back from the break. Most teams are going to have about 30-ish games remaining on their schedule. But so far through this early part of the season, this first third of the season, how have you felt? What surprised you? What's disappointed you?
Yeah, I don't know where you want to start, man. I split this up into three categories. I have a couple teams, I have a couple players, and I have one theme. I'm going to start with the theme, I think, since that's biggest picture. Maybe this is a hot take. Let me know if I'm way off base here, but are we sure the Western Conference is that much better than the Eastern Conference? Last 15 games, top 5 teams in the NBA net rating all come from the East. On the season, it is split perfectly. 2 of the top 3 are in the East. 5 of the top 10 are from the East. And you could say maybe that is a product of like the bottom of the West being a little bit stronger. In the East, you get to beat up on Brooklyn, you get to beat up Washington, you get to beat up on Indiana. Bottom of the West isn't that great either. Like, I don't know. If you want to talk tier 1 title contenders and you want to say Oklahoma City is in their own category, sure. Mm-hmm. I don't know if Denver would probably be my second favorite. I don't know if we've quite seen enough from them to say they're in a completely different category than the Pistons, who just beat them twice, the Knicks, who just beat them, the Celtics, who have played incredible and are about to get their best player back, the Cavs, who have played pretty much the best basketball of any team in the league over the last 10, 12 games. Like, I don't know, Hayes, if there's a huge gap here. There's one team that's better than everyone else in Oklahoma City, but conference to conference, I think that storyline's a little overblown.
Listen, the way that you just laid that out, I don't really disagree with you at all. Like, you make solid points. I know that goes against common thought as far as the East and how we view the East and the West, but like you said, like if Denver, I may put them slightly ahead of Detroit, mainly because they do have Jokic, is a former MVP. Pistons are also a younger team where they haven't done it yet, and so this will be the first season that they of course have finished this high, but they also have the expectations that they're going to have this year in the playoffs. But you make a compelling argument there. I didn't expect that one at all. That's a great argument there.
I appreciate it, man. And look, and Denver's had a ton of injuries this year. Maybe if they were a little healthier, they would look more healthy. We also don't have a guarantee that someone like Aaron Gordon is physically able to get through the playoffs without an injury at this point. They have to get Cam Johnson back. They have to get Peyton Watson back. Again, I'll reiterate, they are my second favorite behind the Thunder for a title. I think they're the team most likely to be able to beat Oklahoma City. I just disagree with the idea they've been leaps and bounds better than everyone in the East. And the West is a conference. Like, we can go through the back end. Like, the Lakers have a great record. They've been incredibly inconsistent. The Rockets general manager is openly talking about, like, maybe this isn't just our year, and that's why they didn't make a move at the deadline. The Wolves have a high ceiling, but are incredibly inconsistent. The Suns are awesome, but I don't think have a high ceiling. Nobody expects anything from the Warriors, Blazers, Clippers at this point. Like, I just, the vaunted depth that was supposed to be there, I don't see. But what about you guys? What would have been some of your biggest surprises?
To me, biggest surprise is the Phoenix Suns. Not only just because, like, I'm not saying that they're like, I don't think they're a threat to make it to the Western Conference Finals or anything like that, but like, I just didn't expect this team to look this good this season, as good as they have. I thought this was going to be a bit of a struggle for them as they look to kind of reset that roster. But I think this is a perfect example of like why just throwing talented players together doesn't work. Like, it has to be a fit there. It has to be a balance. And Brooks has been so good for that Phoenix Suns team. He's one of my favorite players to watch there with them. it's Devin Booker's been good. Dillon Brooks I know he's suspended right now. He's been such a tough player for that team and brings some of the identity that they need for that team. And they've been one of my favorite league pass teams. If the Bulls aren't playing, if the Thunder aren't playing, and there's a Phoenix Suns game there, I'm watching the Phoenix Suns game probably above some other teams that are better than them because they've just been really fun to watch this year.
I know I'm the Knicks guy. I'm lucky enough to live in Phoenix and a few blocks from the arena and have credentials. I am 1,000% with you. They are the best story in basketball this year for my money. Top 12 offense, top 12 defense with talent that is completely disproportionate to that. I think the job Jordan Knott is doing this year, and he might not even win Coach of the Year for it because Joe Mazzulla has done such ridiculous things with the Boston Celtics this year. But I mean, very few teams, I think, in the last 5 years that have played above their nominal talent level relative to the Phoenix Suns. Like, so much of their offense is built on just incredibly thin margins of Devin Booker creating an advantage and guys who just make exceptionally quick decisions, exploiting that advantage and cracking the door open a little wider. One of the best shooting teams in the league to further take advantage of that. Mark Williams is a role big, has been everything they could imagine. People were clowning them for drafting Malawach and trading for him. That ended up being a super shrewd move. And the sneaky thing about them of late is Devin Booker has missed the bulk of the last 20 games, and they've still stayed above water, right? I was there when, to your point, Dillon Brooks dropped 40 on the Detroit Pistons and looked like prime. I don't even know. He looked Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, whatever, elite shot making. When Kobe Bryant, you want to throw out, he just crazy shot making season from Colin Gillespie. Absolute dog. I'm with you. That team's amazing. They play harder than pretty much any team in the NBA this side of Oklahoma City. They're an awesome watch.
For sure. What do you got next on yours?
All right, I'll go one more team. I'm going to go back to the Eastern Conference. I will shout out the Celtics, but that is against my Locked On Knicks contract. So I'm going to go with the Charlotte Hornets. Great stat I saw today. Evan Sider, he had it. Since Christmas, LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, Con Knipple is a trio, scoring 130 points per 100 possessions. They've had the second best offensive rating in the NBA over the last 15 games. They're playing some defense too. They're top 10 in defense over that stretch, 5th overall in net rating. This is just a little sooner than I thought this team would come together. Everyone was clowning their front court in the offseason. People were clowning LaMelo Ball 20 games of the year, and just the idea, could he ever be healthy? My guy XJ, my co-host on Locked On Knicks, put together this incredible video essay talking about how people do not appreciate just the sheer audacity of LaMelo Ball's shot selection and his willingness to pull from 1 foot off 30 feet just bends defenses in a way that no player other than Steph Curry does in the NBA, and how at 6'7", right, with his ability to turn a corner and being a top 3 or 4 passer in the league, he just has a unique ability to take advantage of that. Con Knipple, just ready, in some of the rookies typically can have good box score seasons, and the advanced metrics are not great. Even for Cooper Flag, some of the all-in-one metrics are not super favorable for him. Everything screams that Con Knipple is already contributing in a massive way to winning basketball. Brandon Miller finally healthy. He's been awesome. I mean, they've just fantastic coaching, and a team that I think in the past was about as poorly run as any team in the NBA. You have to consider that. I don't know where you want to put the limit, top 10, top 8 front office in the NBA. They've just done an incredible job putting that team together.
I mean, I make a lot of fun about the Charlotte Hornets and all the misses that they've had and things like that over the years. They almost have a championship caliber team just on the players that they've passed on or even traded that they actually drafted and then traded. But this team is in a good spot right now. And Con Knipple, as you said, he's been so good for that team. Even at points earlier in the season when Ryan Kalkbrenner was still starting for them. That's one of the things that we have to talk. This rookie class has lived up to the hype primarily. Yeah. And that's something that doesn't happen all the time. I know as we got closer to the draft, it seemed like people had came down on the talent level in the draft. And, it was always projected to be a very deep draft. And a lot of the rookies in this class have really stood out and looked very good. So that's probably one of my surprises this year is that the rookie classes have really lived up to the hype. But we talked a lot of positivity so far. What do you got for disappointments?
Oh, that's a good one. Almost everything. Maybe I'm in a good headspace today. Almost everything I had was positive.
Okay.
Clippers and Pacers were, if we're going to talk teams, were my 2 disappointments. I didn't really zoom in on a player one. I don't know if you had a player one you want to fixate on. I'll just 2 seconds on the Clippers. I mean, 6-21 start. I know they lost 10 of 11 at one point, and then they play a top 3-4 team in basketball, and then they're all right, screw it, let's trade all the guys who did that for us. Kawhi having the best scoring season of his career, I think maybe is the single biggest surprise you can put out there if you want to put it positive. It just with all the injuries, with the planting trees, he's saying F you to everyone, and he's cooking. I think that's pretty cool. And yet they blew it up, and they've, I think, now 3-2 since the trade. So they've been treading water. Kawhi continues to be amazing. They're going to get Garland back. Ben Mathurin had a good game for them. So we'll see where it turns, but they're just the craziest roller coaster of the first 35 games I can remember from a team.
For sure. My disappointment, my disappointment is the Milwaukee Bucks, but not because necessarily their record. I'm disappointed because they don't just trade Giannis. Like, it needs to happen. I get it why they want to try to hold on to him. I think they had a prime position in this draft class. They can I mean, at this trade deadline, they can turn around and try to do it in the draft too. But like, I'm disappointed in both Giannis and the Milwaukee Bucks, not because I just want to see a star traded, but I just don't think they're doing the best for the state of their franchise in the couple of years. They're going to regret it if they just hold on to Giannis, in my opinion. So,
yeah, I mean, I don't even know if I'd call it a surprise, because we've just had years of Giannis being very wishy-washy on this and saying, yeah, I want out. No, I didn't officially call for a trade, and then taking like a victory lap on Twitter when he wasn't traded and saying, hey, superstars attract talent. They don't chase it. But you clearly wanted out, and you leaked you wanted out, and they're roasting Shams, but Shams is presumably just tweeting what Giannis's agent is telling him. Like, the whole thing is like, it's a bummer. It's bad vibes. We'll see what happens this summer. Like, I would still expect him to get traded, because as so many people said this offseason, like getting them figuring out a way to get Miles Turner was great. It was insane. Like, there was no world where that made them a championship contender.
Exactly. And I agree with you wholeheartedly there. Well, that ends that. We'll hear from you guys in the comment section if you're on the YouTube side. What were your biggest surprises and disappointments at this point in the season? Next up, we're going to be talking about and predicting the top 3 teams to finish in the East and the West. We're going to do that right after this. The Winter Games are officially here, and if you're anything like us, you're locking in for events you only get to see on the biggest stage every 4 years. And that's why following the Winter Games on FanDuel just makes sense. From medal counts to individual events to finding your angle on the sports you care about most, FanDuel gives you more ways to stay connected to the action. The drama of curling matches that start slow and somehow get intense fast, speed skating races decided by inches, hockey games that feel different right from the opening tip-off. Every niche event becomes a much-watched event when you're fully locked in with the competition. FanDuel keeps the entire Olympic experience engaging from start to finish. The Winter Games are on, and there's no better way to follow them than with FanDuel. FanDuel, play your game. I also got to talk to you guys about another one of our sponsors, and that is Indeed. Hiring isn't just about finding someone willing to take the job. It's about finding the right person with the right background who could actually help your business move forward. And if you want candidates who match what you're looking for, Indeed Sponsored Jobs is the move. Because instead of hoping the right person stumbles across your post, Indeed helps you match with quality candidates by boosting your job listing to the people who fit your criteria the most, like skills, certifications, and location. If I were hiring, I wouldn't just want somebody who can help. I'd want someone with real experience who can jump right in. That's why I like most about Indeed. You can get specific and target exactly what you need. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you guys, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. If you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Listeners of this show will get $75 sponsored job credit to help your job get the premium status it deserves. Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed. More Locked On NBA Game Night coming up next. Gavin, it's been a crazy season. It's always a little bit unpredictable. I don't know if I had the Detroit Pistons being at the top of the Eastern Conference or anything like that. But the Cleveland Cavaliers start off the season disappointing. They're looking like they're starting to turn it around. But when you look at the East and the West, right now in the Eastern Conference, the Detroit Pistons, the Boston Celtics, and New York Knicks are the top 3 teams in the East. And then in the West, it's the Thunder, the Spurs, and the Nuggets that hold right now the top 3 seeds in those conferences. Who do you think finishes in the top 3, though?
Yeah, I'll start East, because in the West, spoilers, I think it stays exactly how it is right now. Mm-hmm. But in the East, I have the Pistons, the Cavs, and then the Knicks. And maybe that's foolish, given that, as I said before, the Celtics are about to add Jason Tatum to their team. And as I think it was on Fred Katz and Zach Lowe on their podcast, did an incredible job breaking down, like the bare minimum you're getting from Jason Tatum is probably one of the best role quote unquote role players we've seen in NBA history, just like a hyper overqualified superstar. And even if he's playing 25 minutes, even if he's a little wary to like fully go downhill, you're still getting a guy who's like an awesome defender, like elite shot maker, super unselfish, like willing to make the next pass, like continue to propel that system forward, which is probably why they were willing to trade Anthony Simons, who was so key for them doing like a smaller version of a lot of those things offensively, at least. That being said, Cleveland has, I think, the single weakest remaining schedule of like any contender the rest of the way. They have the 26th easiest schedule left in basketball. They have looked awesome with James Harden, even though there have still been like real growing pains to incorporating him. They haven't had Evan Mobley for the bulk of this recent stretch. They're going to get Max Strus back as yet another shooter. They have an incredible formula to be a great regular season team. And that's why, to me, even with all their injury issues, it was somewhat shocking that they struggled to such an extent, even before this current run, even with Garland out. Like you just expected them to rack up wins. And some of that was that the offense without Garland tanked every single time Donovan Mitchell left the floor. James Harden had the Clippers whenever he was on the floor playing like the best or one of the best offenses in basketball. So it feels like they've solved that problem. They are loaded with an absurd amount of shooting, right? Sam Merrill, Jalen Tyson, both, I believe, over 44% on high volume on the season. Mobley, like, I think is tailed off a little bit after like kind of a crazy start to the year, but he's still just obviously an incredible defender and stronger, more forceful on the glass. I have questions about them as a playoff team, but when you compare their schedule, again, 27th to Boston, which is 5th, and I just think the Celtics, I think there's going to be like maybe a 4-6, 3-7 stretch in there as they're getting Tatum back up to speed, or maybe even before they get Tatum back up to speed. They've struggled a little bit since the Vucevic trade. That could drop them down. They'll recover. I just think the other teams in the East are so locked in at this point, barring some injuries in New York who can't really afford them. Those should be the top 3 teams in the East.
I like that. I like the Detroit Pistons. I think the Detroit Pistons are going to finish at number 1. I think that they have a 5.5 game lead over the Celtics, which are the number 2 team. And as long as they stay healthy, they're just so good offensively and defensively this year. That Cade and Jalen Duren pick and roll, the defense that they have there is so legitimate. I don't see them dropping out of the number 1 seed in the East. I do think the New York Knicks do take the number 2 seed in the East, but I still have Boston at number 3. And the only reason is I don't trust the Cleveland Cavaliers all the way yet. And maybe this is my mind is more on the playoffs, and I can maybe admit that. Like, I'm a little bit worried, of course, about the James Harden shrinking in the playoffs thing. But if James Harden really buys in to being this complimentary role, because I think Allen and Mobley in those minutes with his passing could be so good. He can be so good for those players if he allows his passing to be the focus, and then scores like when Donovan's on the bench or whatever else, and still have his time. But if he really digs into being that facilitator for this Cavs team, I think that we'll see the best version of James Harden we probably ever seen in the playoffs if he's able to do that. But I got Detroit, New York, and Boston probably finishing in that top 3. The Tatum part of it is interesting, right? Because like he's an amazing player. We know that. No matter what if he comes back at 80%, he's still going to be a great player for them. But that incorporating him back, that hump that you mentioned there, that could really hurt them. And they're already incorporating Nikola Vucevic and stuff like that. But I'm going to have faith until we see otherwise. But let's go to the Western Conference right now. Top 3 teams, as I said, Thunder, Spurs, Nuggets. You already kind of buried the lead there. You expect them to finish that way?
Yeah, well, tell me if there's another team you would make a case for, because I mean, Oklahoma, like the best argument against it is the closing schedule. Like Denver has the hardest remaining schedule in the NBA. Mm-hmm. Oklahoma City, who like sneakily during that 24-1 start to my argument on the West not being as good as people think. They had the easiest schedule in the NBA. They had the second hardest remaining schedule in the NBA. Minnesota, the team, like if you were going to tell me one team would make a charge after acquiring Ayo Dosunmu, right, filling that Nickeil Alexander Walker-sized gap in their rotation, like if I was going to make a case, it'd be them. They have the third hardest remaining schedule in the NBA. So to me, that is my best argument for things remaining somewhat stagnant. Like the Spurs would be another team you'd poke at and say, hey, they're young. Maybe they're playing a little bit over their head. If anything happens to Wemby, they're going to be really conservative. But the Spurs, unlike those teams, have the 10th hardest remaining schedule. So maybe I'm putting too much weight into schedule strength, but I just don't see the team that breaks in there. The Rockets made no move. They don't have a point guard. Yeah. The Lakers are just incredibly injury prone. They're going to be cautious with LeBron. The defense still sucks. I already talked about the Wolves. I just don't see the Suns getting that high. So is there an argument for another team?
I mean, Honestly, probably not. Like, it had the Rockets made a move, like you said, for a point guard, maybe you'd be talking about them a little bit more. But no, I could see it finishing the exact way. Maybe if anything, like you said, the Nuggets maybe pass the Spurs, but they have a difficult schedule. Maybe the more interesting conversation is to have the conversation between 4 and 6 for the West. Is where you, because the Wolves are this team that every year, like the last 2 years, it's been like this team that you're like, okay, yeah, they're not bad, right? But then they hit the surge at the right time, and then they go to the Western Conference Finals. Like, do you see that happening for them again this year, even with them having a difficult schedule?
Do I see them making the West Finals?
No, yeah, or making a push here late in the season.
I see them making a push, and I think they're really good. And I think Dosunmu was a missing piece for them. There's a stark inconsistency there where they're 2-1 against Oklahoma City, and like obviously the Thunder trashed them in the playoffs. The Thunder are not worried about their regular season record against any team. I do think there's something to the formula they have. I still kind of worry about the idea. I mean, what Oklahoma City did to them in the playoffs last year was like blitz Anthony Edwards, like someone who early in his career was maybe critiqued for like taking some crazy shots, like consistently made the right play, and they just didn't have quite enough firepower, and even less so firepower because they have a bunch of guys who can score. Like it is still that like lack of secondary ball handler. And maybe like you could tell me better than I would know. Like maybe that is Dosunmu, but I think that is probably asking a lot for him, even though I'm really high on his game. I think Oklahoma City and Denver are in a little bit of a different class. And if there's a team with the ceiling to break through this year, it is probably the Spurs. I don't really trust the Spurs' lack of experience in the playoffs, but what they have athletically to me is a little reminiscent of the Thunder in the early 2010s, right? When it was Harden, when it was Russ, when it was KD, when it was Serge Ibaka, and they just like they took on veteran teams that were nominally better than them, like the Spurs, that were well-oiled machines, and they just said, "Hey, we are bigger, longer, faster, stronger," and like Wemby's potential to just take over a series and tilt it up even another level. I think they would be my version of a Minnesota dark horse this year that could upset one of Oklahoma City and Denver, but probably not both. That being said, Minnesota's awesome, and to me, they're the fourth team. If I haven't made it clear, I've lost a lot of faith in Houston.
Yeah, and I came into the season super high on Houston and the potential there. I've come back down to reality. I still love their like ceiling going forward because of what they've been able to keep on that team. But yeah, this season it just does not seem like it. But hey, we've seen team surprises before. Maybe that can be Houston this year. Anything left, Gavin, before we get out of this segment?
I don't believe in the Lakers. I'll say that they're 16th in net rating. They've won a bunch of close games, and you give them credit for that. Luka has the potential to like go supernova, like make a series competitive that shouldn't be. But the overall roster, I don't think Luke Kennard solves what's ailing them. Like the defense, I think is going to get picked apart in the playoffs.
I agree with that. So that's it on this one. We're going to come back. We're going to be talking about the NBA Rising Stars game, and we'll catch you guys over there. All right. And so I have a message from one of our sponsors, and that is GameTime. There's nothing like being in the NBA arena. The crowd, the energy, the moment. Getting tickets, though, that's the part that's always not been so simple. That's why GameTime has become the go-to app for scoring tickets fast, without the hassle. It puts the advantage back where it belongs, and that's with the fans. Pulled up the GameTime app, picked an upcoming NBA game, and had tickets locked in within minutes. Love seeing the all-in pricing up front so there's no surprise fees at checkout. Being able to see your view from seat before buying makes the decision easy. The zone deals also stood out. Choose the section, GameTime picks the seats, and you save. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the GameTime app today, and remember, it's GameTime.co, not .com. Or Locked On NBA Game Night coming up next. All right, Gavin. So we had the NBA Rising Stars competition. We had in the first game, Team Melo won against Team Austin 40-34. Then Team Vince won 41-36 against Team T-Mac. And then in the final, Team Vince won 25-24 over Team Melo. Hey, how'd you feel about the format of the Rising Stars competition? Is this the format you like to see going forward? And then how'd you feel about the games overall?
Yeah, I thought it was cool. It was quick hitting. I think the low target score of 40 and then 25 in the final, like it doesn't give a lot of F around time, right? Which you lose something in that, right? I mean, Noah Eagle was talking about in the broadcast, but like the Tim Hardaway? It was Brandon Knight and Kyrie had a duel. Yeah. Tim Hardaway had a duel with Dion Waiters. Like you lose some of the chicanery, you lose some of the fun, but you get more intense basketball. And I guess you give these guys credit. relative to the actual All-Star game, right? For playing hard, for competing, you get some moments when, like, to me, that is always the most fascinating part of All-Star games. And on a lower scale, like these rookie sophomore games over the year, like, who do players defer to in the closing moments? Like who are the guys they want to take big shots? Who are the guys who step up defensively because they want the matchup, they want to get a stop in a key moment? Who are the guys coaches choose to put on the court? It's a little less interesting in a Rising Stars type challenge, but because of the low score, like it does kind of create that intensity throughout.
Yeah, I mean, I think they I don't want to say manufactured. That makes it seem a little bit less official than what I do, but I think that the way that they created it with the lower score in the final, it does make sense. The target scores, I think also it puts a finite time on it to where, especially if you're gonna have 3 games in a night, it doesn't make it to where it drags on. And that's the thing that you could say about this, is that it was just pure basketball. They came out there, they played, they got to their points total, and it was entertaining. I don't know if it's as fun as I'd want it to be. Like I hesitated in using the word fun, but it wasn't entertaining. I think the way that they did the tournament, for sure.
Yeah, it was cool. I mean, you get guys like VJ. I liked watching VJ Edgecombe against Con Knipple in the closing moments of that second game, and Con didn't have a particularly good night, especially shooting the ball. VJ was ridiculous in that first game. I think he finished 6 of 8, 3 threes, 17 of the 41 points, scores their final 10, and then in the second game, like, gets that big crash right through Dillon Harper, right through Steph Castle for the offensive board, and the putback that gave them the 23-22 lead. Like, it is sort of fun to see, like, 2 guys who were rookie of the year contenders. In a previous segment, I was talking about how Knipple's like one of the only rookies with like great advanced metrics, but VJ has had, I mean, obviously Coop is probably one, but he's had the moments out of all these rookies this year, like late in games, like going to him, the ability, like they were talking about with Steph Castle, like at a very young age, knowing where his spots are, knowing how to get there, knowing how to execute once he does. Like, they're for a guy who seemed very raw coming out of Baylor, and you thought offensively was going to be a bit of a project for a guy who's a top 3 pick. Like he's just clinical offensively, and it's a joy to watch when you combine that with his athleticism, his compete level. Like he's a monster.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these guys. So I know we briefly touched on the rookie class, you know, in one of the past segments. Has talked about just, you know, I mentioned how this rookie class has really lived up to the hype in a lot of ways. It was good to see a lot of these rookies and second year players really step up in this one as well. Is there anybody, if you had to give a performer of the night between the 3 games, who would be your performer of the night?
All right, so it would have been VJ, but I already talked about him. Yeah. I'm gonna do some real time with you. Jan Hansen stood out to me.
Man, he's so skilled. He really is so skilled.
He flashed in summer league, hit a 3, ran the floor for a layup. The one that I'm sure stood out to everyone was when he absolutely toasted his teammate Donovan Clingan, maybe replicating what he does in practice, but pump, like really smooth, like hesitation and a blow by for a layup. Like, obviously he's much bigger and he's not going to move as well. And like, I know he's a talented passer. Like the Garrett Queen has already done it on an NBA level, but you see like similar outlines, not that they're the exact same type of player. Again, Young is like whatever 3-4 inches taller, but like some like that super skilled modern big, and like who knows if he'll ever be like quick enough or athletic enough for it to be totally functional in the NBA. But the flashes were there from him. Seeing Donovan Clingan hit 3s was fun. Steph Castle, as I mentioned before, like him wanting the ball in the big moments, getting to his spot repeatedly, like that right baseline short jumper. Like he is, I think the phrase like throwback game is a little bit overused, but in some ways he does feel like out of the 90s, out of the 2000s, and how like refined his mid-range game is, how competitive he is defensively. Reed Shepherd had maybe my favorite moment of the night, that left to right crossover that had who was it defending? It was Carter Bryant was literally doing like spins after that. That was dirty. So I know you asked for one guy, I gave you 4, but there were a lot of fun guys, a lot of fun moments.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun moments today. You know, of course, VJ Edgecombe is definitely stand out as like I just continue to be so impressed by, I think how smooth his game, how refined his game looks, and I didn't expect that in his rookie year. I honestly didn't. I know you touched on that a little bit. My guy Modest Buzelis, of course, had his moments. He's a Chicago Bull, but he really did have his moments. This is his 3rd time playing in this game in a different way, so he should stand out in that way a lot too. And I'll say this too. Dillon Harper is just such like he's just a smart basketball player at this stage of his career as well.
Yeah, he's electric. I mean, and obviously the shooting is the biggest question there. He hits two of the first three for Team Mello in the championship. I always hesitate to say the team names because I don't think anyone remembers who was on what team.
Nobody's
Dillon,
gonna remember.
for those of you watching at home, no, rest easy. Dillon Harper was on Team Mello. Two threes early in that, and I mean, he's someone like we talk about. Like Buzelis had that nasty, like, when he was at the elbow, he had picked up his dribble, was facing the other way, and turned into like this like reverse pirouette layup. And I was like writing it down in my notes. I was like, who would I compare that move to? And I was like, that's kind of a Dillon Harper move. And it's crazy to say that about someone who's a rookie, but that's kind of how I think about Dillon Harper. Like grew up his whole life with like the gather step and the two steps not being a travel, and he maybe just a million skilled trainers in his life, but he's maximized that. Like he just has crazy footwork and always finds a way to get to the rim. He's super fun.
For sure. As the NBA continues to try to refine, I know they've tried something different every year for like the last 3 years, and like the All-Star game, this format of the Rising Stars, is this a format you think they should continue with?
For the Rising Stars, yeah, for sure. If it was for the all, and I'm not, this is maybe unprofessional as an NBA podcaster. I don't know what the format is for the All-Star game. If this is exactly the same, it should definitely be more than 25 points for the final game in the, because I remember last year they made it 40 for the All-Star game, and especially at that level, because it is casual for a lot of it. Like it's way too quick and it feels stupid. I don't know if making it longer would solve that at all, but for the Rising Stars game, I'm perfectly good with this. What did you think about it?
No, I think yeah, this is a fun format. I the Rising Stars should just be fun. Yeah. And that's what I think you got to take a look at a lot of guys. I think the format also allowed you to see, probably the most players. If you just played a straightforward, game, I don't know if you see as many of these guys have the moments as what they do. So I think they've nailed the perfect format for the Rising Stars. The All-Star game, like, I guess we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Like, yeah, the point total should be higher, but for the Rising Stars, I think they've nailed on the perfect format for sure.
Yeah, give me this was a Nick Wright suggestion this week for regular NBA games. Give me dunks worth 3, I think, in both the All-Star game and the Rising Star. Just because, I mean, I don't think NBA teams would approve of that, because you're just baiting someone to get injured when it's 22-23 and you need to win. And we saw team Vince like hunting, or excuse me, it was Team Mello. Like hunting a 3, they couldn't get a 3. They settled for Fears driving and Castle getting the putback. But if you could win on a dunk, that makes it more intriguing, right? At the end of the game, you don't have to hunt a 3. You can hunt a dunk as well. I think that would be fun. Also, maybe no win. Like I agree with the win by 2. Maybe just no winning on free throws. I guess that's unfair because it incentivizes teams to foul someone. But a little bit of an anticlimactic ending. So those would be my pivots. But it's I don't care enough to really go to that.
For sure. Any last thoughts, Gavin, before we get up out of here, man?
Man, I hope the reviews are positive Saturday and Sunday. I'll be on tomorrow's pod. I know Danny and Swipa will have everyone covered on Sunday. We've had some players say they're going to play hard. Victor Wembanyama, like, I really do believe he is like some of that Kobe like psychopathy in him, where like he will take this seriously. He will, and like just like a deep respect for the history of the NBA and the way like you mentioned, like when we were both growing up, Hayes, like how this game used to be. I'm hoping like a few guys playing obscenely hard will bring out some competitive genes in. It's funny because Wemby's going to be on the same team with Luka Doncic and Nikola Jokic, who Kevin Durant pointed out earlier this year, just have historically just could not have given less of a crap about this game. Jokic in particular is just, I mean, rightfully when you win a championship, I get it, but I'm hoping some of those competitive juices can flow a little bit. I can't say I have high expectations for that given how the last few years have gone.
Yeah, I think to get the All-Star game back, you need guys that like Ant, you need guys like Wemby, you need these guys to take this game seriously from the competitive standpoint. I think you need to bring that back. We'll see. We'll get on that. Like you said, the guys will cover that when they get to it, man. But Gavin, thank you for joining me. Y'all make sure you guys go check Gavin out over on Locked On Knicks. You can check me out on Locked On Bulls. Locked On NBA is free and available on every podcasting app and platform of your choosing, as well as YouTube, the Odyssey app, Amazon Fire TV, Roku TV, and Fubo TV. Basically, anywhere you want to see us, you guys can get it. We'll catch you guys tomorrow, y'all. Peace.